Hey everyone, it's Justine Browning here at the Paley Center in New York City to talk to the cast and showrunner of the hit FX series, Fargo. I love this character, Peggy. Oh my goodness. She's such a pastiche of a lot of different inspirations, I think. It's almost like June Cleaver meets Betty Draper in some capacity. What were your inspirations?
For me, I didn't really look to other characters, but at the end of the day, how I developed Peggy was, a little think of everything from myself. My grandma's from Minnesota, so I have little things that I can draw apart and expand. And then her look, I wanted people to kind of giggle when they saw her, and so that was important to me. And her little berets, she wants to travel and go to Paris, and she has this whole other fantasy life in her head.
Not only do we kind of giggle when we see her, but I wouldn't mess with this woman, and I don't know why. There's something about her that's so absolutely frightening. What were your conversations with Noah like in terms of bringing that, to the surface?
I mean, to be honest, it's written. He's such a great writer. I'm not somebody who talks a lot about my process with the director and the character. It's more I go in my own world and I do it all. So it's just about finding out, what you can bring out in yourself that makes the character real. So that's what I do. Yeah.
Playing off of Jesse, his role as Ed, I think you are such a fascinating couple to watch on screen.
I know. He loves her so much, and she loves him too. And it is a love story in a way, because it's what would you do for a person? How far would you go? And he really does so much for her. To a fault, but yeah, I know.
I can already see, and I've only seen the first 2 episodes, but I can already see that that's not going to be good for him.
Yeah, well, in a way, it brings them closer though together too.
What a
in a sick
pair.
way. Yeah, exactly. It's really sick. It's a sick love story.
Poor Ed. When we see him in the first episode, a lot is happening to him, but he's a bit of a passive character now. How much did you know up front about where this character would go?
I'd read 4 episodes and watched the first season, and so having watched the first season, you know that things typically only get worse for Fargo characters. So I had some inkling, but was still surprised.
I love that this is a bit of a Leave It to Beaver kind of character in this very macabre and bizarre world. I'm wondering where you drew your inspiration, because he has such a distinct look and tone, this character.
I think a lot of it was on the page and conversations with Noah. I think Ed is the type of guy that is sort of stuck maybe in the 50s, and yeah, I mean it was just it just made sense kind of immediately. So.
How long did it take you to ease into this very distinct world with the way that the language is constructed in the script and just the pacing?
It definitely took a few episodes just because you obviously want to bring as much truth to the part, but there's definitely a level of humor that is prevalent in all Coen Brothers types of work. It was once again just a lot of conversations with Noah asking, am I doing this right? And
This character has such a distinct look, and I'm wondering what your early conversations with Noah were about constructing that.
Yeah, that's a great question, because I actually didn't know who Dodd was until I put on my wardrobe. Yeah, I was scared. I was like, I don't even know what I'm doing. I'm going to get fired before I even say my first line. But he suggested these kind of big print wide collar shirts. But then we found this really cool leather jacket from the 70s, and then he gave me some cowboy boots, and I asked him if I could put these silver tips on them, and he said yes. And then he kind of all came together. And then he gave me that kind of Lee Marvin hat and cigar, and that kind of completed it all. So it was kind of a back and forth, but I owe a lot to Noah for even imagining this character to let me even play him.
I think in season 2 it's so apparent how he's really coming into his own, distinguishing himself from the Coens really with his pacing and tone. Did you have an input, aside from the wardrobe a little bit, did you have an input at all when you were developing this character?
The honest answer is no, because it was all on the page when I first read it, and I didn't really ask to change much. It was more of a discussion of what's his backstory, who is this guy, and then just comments, where I'd ask him, is it possible that there's a lighter moment here, that we can find a little humor in his darkness? And he was all for that. So, the kind of famous scene right now that's in the trailer is asking for a chocolate glazed. All of that was there on the page, and I just wanted to make sure that we were finding the humor, and he always allowed me to do that.
How long did it take you to get the pacing down pat? Because it's so distinct in this series. There's really nothing like it in terms of that.
Pacing meaning the dialogue, or?
Yeah, the pacing, the tone. I think it moves, each character moves and speaks in a very specific way.
For me personally, Noah gave me some great notes. We were on the same page from the beginning. Whenever I had, he was like a compass. Whenever I thought that maybe I wasn't quite sure where I was going or if I was going the right direction, I could refer to him.
So how much do you know in advance with a show like this? I mean, we know what happens because, the second season is these characters in the future, but how much were you aware of up front? Did you know what you were getting into exactly?
I knew that I wanted to uphold the legacy of Fargo in the capacity that I'm capable of, because it means a lot to me as an actor, and that was my prime directive. Other than that, I just stood true to that notion and didn't think about the extraneous things like you said, where is it going, or the end result, or that didn't matter. It was just every moment, give 125% and try your best.
Being immersed in that world, the style, I'm sure that adds a new layer.
Absolutely. As I said earlier this morning, we were on the radio, but I said actors like to talk about working from the inside out, and all that kind of thing, but there's a lot to be said for working from the outside in. External things can make you feel completely differently,
And I'm sure, specifically with the show, when you...
And the cold.
The cold. Does the accent come out naturally because of the...
Well, they wanted it to be very, very subtle, especially I think for my character. I think it would have been a mistake to have her kind of be, oh gosh,
I can't even do that if I
No,
tried.
you betcha. I don't think Floyd would have been the same woman.
That's incredible.
But see, I grew up in a Scandinavian community in Seattle, Washington, so I'm not Scandinavian, but I grew up hearing that. All of my friends' parents and grandparents were from either Norway or Sweden, or were Danish or Icelandic, and that's similar, very similar to that accent. It's got that Canadian, Scandinavian influence, kind of, so.
You were preparing and you didn't even know it.
That's right. I was born to play this part.
Early on in this season, we don't see too much about your character. There's very nuanced details.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering if you could speak a bit about that. We're so curious about her, and yet we know nothing.
Yeah. You'll find out more.
What will we find out? I won't tell anyone.
Oh, I'm not going to fall for that. This is not my first rodeo.
That's true. Oh my God, you were involved in one of the biggest secrets in TV history.
Yeah.
Duh. Okay.
Yeah.
But I can imagine that when season 1 was being released, a lot of people were extremely skeptical. They weren't sure if it was going to work, and then lo and behold, it exceeded everyone's expectations.
Yeah.
So imagine approaching season 2 from an acting standpoint. How did you become confident that it wasn't just lightning in a bottle, that they were actually going to move on with another great season?
Well, all I had to do was read it. I think they sent me, when I got the offer, they sent me the first 4 scripts that they had, or first 3 or something like that. And I read them and I just was like, this is incredible. This is incredibly written. So yeah, I was instantly hooked.
Do you develop a lot of backstory on your characters? Because here they're so vivid.
Yeah. Well, a lot of it I found out as we went along. I had some ideas that I went in with, for sure, that what I knew, and then there were certain things revealed that I was like, oh, I see. Oh, and then I would carry them with me, to future ones.
I imagine it must be difficult when you're playing a character one way and then you find out something completely different. Does that throw you off at all?
Oh, it wasn't ever that big.
Oh, okay.
But you just find out these like beautiful little details that will be revealed later that just really floored me.
I can already tell that she's kind of an anchor for Patrick Wilson's character.
Completely.
I'm so curious to see how that relationship plays out.
Yeah, it's a good one. It's a beautiful marriage.
There's a lot laid out. They seem like the innocent people among kind of the absurdity and murderous mayhem.
Yeah, well, I think that they genuinely love each other and they understand each other, and still waters run deep with both of them.
Everyone that I've spoken to, no matter what I ask them, they just give credit to you. What have you done to them?
I hope they also give blame to me when things are bad.
Everything. I'm saying, how do you find the pacing? How do you find the tone? Where do you discover your characters? It's all there.
Well, somebody's job has to be to think about all that stuff, and then, you find people to think about very specific things. You find the right production designer or each actor, should really be thinking about their role. Like, their job is not to think about anything else. So, but everything informs that. So, it's good to see the clothes they're wearing or the house they live in or, the people that are around them and so you're sort of curating that world for them, and then you write the words, and then you sort of get out of the way, is my feeling.
What I have noticed, even more so this season, there seems to be a pastiche of different styles. There's a little bit of noir, and obviously, it being something late 70s, that comes into play. Where did you draw your inspiration? For any specific films, literature?
Yeah, we were making a 70s movie, and I went back, and I do remember a couple of movies, I think mostly 60s, like Point Blank with Lee Marvin and The Getaway with Steve McQueen. Very stylistic movies. They're very bold. That was the sort of filmmaking of that day where they were trying a lot of things. Split screens came from a process of just like, what else can we do? So that played a big role in it. And then I felt a little freer this year to move the camera a little more dramatically, and then it just becomes about serving the moments. It's not about moving the camera to move the camera. It's about how do you enhance the emotional journey that these people are going on, or the thread of this moment, or you tend not to score a comedy in any way. You just play it dry, but a lot of the drama, in that critical moment, you want the camera to do something that boosts the feeling. So.
And it's especially apparent in the diner scene. That's so cinematic and iconic looking.
And the door swinging, and it's like, but that's what cinema is. It's a series of shots added up one after the other, and if you get the right ones in the right order, you can create those hugely memorable set pieces.